If you're not old, unlike me, you probably don't remember a time where British wrestling didn't have a buzz like it does at the moment. It was still filled with ridiculously talented workers, but that was kind of hidden away, especially when you were looking at it from a world point of view. Now, however, the spotlight is so bright it would burn the retinas in your eyes. And while it may not be as popular in terms of numbers as it was during the World of Sport days, it's very exciting and there's a lot going on, a lot to be pumped about. It's kicking all the ass, and in many ways it may be the best place to turn your attention for when you want your wrestling fix, because you should be supporting British wrestling. Why? Here's why. The thing that stands tall right off the bat is how many good companies we have performing at a high level, because it's just mad. We'd be lucky if we had one. We've got more than one. We've got loads. Progress, ICW, IPW, RevPro, Lucha Britannia, WCPW, All-Star. I've missed loads there, but they're the first ones that pop into my head, and they've all got an incredibly talented roster and incredibly skilled wrestlers working for them. Every single one. It's as good as what the rest of the world is offering, and it's right here, right on our shores, wrestling on your doorstep, kicking ass. That's madness. This is why the time is now to support it more than ever though. Aside from the fact that if you do go to one of these shows, you know you're in for a good time, we don't know when something like this is going to happen again. So what we should be doing is taking advantage of it and seeing just how high we can get this stuff, because right now there's no ceiling. It's pretty obvious that right now the indie scene is booming, but nowhere else on the planet is pumping out as good a talent as the UK is. Maybe on par, but nobody can argue any better because we're throwing out the cream of the crop. Also, this cream isn't just bossing it here, they're going overseas and they're bossing it there too. They're literally the bosses of pro wrestling. Drew McIntyre returned to WWE. Pete Dunne is basically the poster boy for all of wrestling. Tyler Bate is a revelation. Marty Scurll is on the cusp of greatness, and Will Ospreay essentially rewrote the rule book for what pro wrestling is. He's a trendsetter. And that's just 5 people, but we could literally spend the rest of this video just coming up with names and then arguing why they could be the very best. That's how good it is right now. How all of this has happened is anyone's guess, but it does seem to be a combination of right place and right time, mixed with the fact that you know when you go and see one of the promotions I mentioned earlier, you're gonna be in for an amazing time. Progress lives or dies by that idea to such a degree you won't even see a bad match when you go down to check them out, and also their whole chapter system is awesome. Such a simple idea, but it sounds great, and you'd be amazed how those small touches can change things. Just gives them a cool factor. Then there's ICW, a promotion so popular and so good, it runs events in Glasgow's Hydro venue. I've been to the Hydro, it's massive. And this is all down to the product they're putting out there, and even if you're not familiar with it, it will take you around 35 seconds to figure out why it is so damn decent. The atmosphere around it makes it addictive, makes it compelling. And then there's RevPro that has a roster that is so ridiculous and so packed that you will laugh out loud when you see how much talent they have, but every time they go to war, there's a match of the year contender that comes out the other side. Those kind of averages are hard to beat, and it makes it very easy to warm to the product, and they just keep getting better and better. It's not like they're hitting a stumbling block or coming up against obstacles, it's just up. The graph goes up, like a well-oiled business. And yeah, then there is WCPW, and obviously that ties into all this a little bit, but I'll be damned if I'm gonna stand here and not say they're doing a good job too, because they are. If you say they're not, you're kidding yourself. Aside from following the trend of just not being able to put on a bad show, which is true for all of British wrestling, at the moment they're putting on a world tournament and have had a bunch of Hall of Famers, both young and old, walk through their doors. Plus they had this one dude once, and he was doing the ring announcing, and he seemed like a really good dude. And then he got speared by the primate, and life was never the same again. Let's move on. I can tell you though that if you do decide to head out to one of these shows, you're going to have a good time, both by what you're seeing in the ring and because of the production values. Unlike the stereotype that if you go to watch a British wrestling show, it's going to be dark and dingy and like you're in a dungeon, it's not true. They're bright, they look great, they look exciting, they get you in there straight away. And this just goes even further when you realise just how far-reaching it is. As well as the guys we mentioned earlier going over to Japan and America and whooping ass there, You can see it all the time. The Wrestling Observer is always talking about British wrestlers. And just look what WWE is currently trying to do. They want a piece of this pie so bad, they've got a UK championship and we're going to get some kind of TV program eventually. All this is because it's good and definitely something you should get into and support, especially if you're a bit bored of pro wrestling elsewhere. This is different. This is amazing. It also means the more that we do support it, the bigger it can get. World of Sport was on the verge of coming back last year to mainstream TV. And think of that, wrestling on mainstream TV, and sure, there were a few issues that delayed it, but word on the street is it is coming back in 2018, and we should all be rallying behind each other to ensure we make pro wrestling as big as it can be. And I'm not saying I can do that, and I'm not saying you can do that, but I'm saying together we could help all this grow simply by supporting it. And maybe if we do that, we'll be setting it up for years to come. So never again will it vanish into obscurity. It will remain at the forefront, and it will just continue to improve day by day, week by week, year by year. And that goes for non-Brits too. We're all in this together. There's loads of ways to get into British wrestling. YouTube, iPay-per-view, streaming, whatever you want. So let's do it. Let's support British wrestling and let's support all of independent wrestling and make sure this boom never dies. Now don't forget to leave a comment below and let us know what you think about the rise of British wrestling. Like, share and subscribe. Head on over to whatculture.com and read some articles and follow What Culture on Twitter at WhatCultureWWE. I am Simon from What Culture, and you know what? I flipping love British wrestling.
You there, do you want to prove you're a wrestling smartass? Then answer me this. Who was the first Alliance Invader to win a championship in the Invasion storyline? It was Mike Awesome, it was the Hardcore Championship. Did you get it? I don't care. To test yourself and whatever friends you might have, buy the new What Culture Wrestling trivia game available at shop.whatculture.com.